in this session. Thank you very much, colleagues, for joining and other presenters. My name is Olushola Adeniyi, and I'll be the one chairing for this session. Today's session for this afternoon will focus on education for sustainable development, and we have a list of speakers that are going to be sharing their studies, their research with the wider UWC community. First on the list is Ms. Lilita Nduchiana. And I want to confirm if Ms. Lilita is here. Ms. Lilita, are you here with us? Oh, there we go. Okay. So with Ms. Lilita, she's a master's student in the Department of Information System in the Faculty of Economic and Management Sciences. And our study is focusing on the factors that affect the adoption of online learning in South Africa. Ms. Lilita, thank you so much for joining us. May you please proceed with your presentation. Okay, it just seems that we don't have Ms. Lilita here with us. Also looking at the list of the speakers, and I'm not seeing Dr. Mtwati as well. Maybe we just, okay. So I'm not seeing Dr. Mtwati, I'm not seeing Lilita. Can we just move to Dr. Alvin? Can I have Dr. Alvin's, thank you very much for putting up Dr. Alvin's bio. So Dr. Alvin Daniel Rifel is an employee of the University of the Western Cape. He's a lecturer in the Faculty of Education. He has his BA degree with a higher diploma in education, his honors degree and his master's, as well as his doctoral degree, all in science education. And they were all obtained in the University of the Western Cape. Dr. Rifel lectures social sciences and history in the Department of Educational Studies, in the EFT and the PGCE program. Thank you so much, Dr. Alvin, for availing yourself to be part of this research week. We look forward to your presentation. Please, you may go ahead with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. I'm just struggling to upload my presentation at the moment. Just guide me. I'm on my launch screen at the moment.
Okay, there's an arrow that shows share screen. So I think when you click on that, did you see that it should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the sixth icon. It shows share screen. Can you see that, Dr. Alvin?
Not yet, not yet. I'm checking. Yes, share screen. I've got it.
Oh, great. So while you're uploading your presentation, I just want to encourage as many of the attendees, please take note of the presentation. If you have any question, please feel free to put it in the Q&A box, and we will make sure that the presenters or the speakers respond to your question. Thank you so much. Yes, Dr. Alvin, please, you may go ahead.
Can you see it, Prof?
Yes, we can see it clearly.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Alvin Ruffel. Thank you for the brief introduction. I'm nested in the Educational Studies department at UWC, the Faculty of Education, and I've been around for some time in the university or at the university, where I started my journey, or my field of research is in indigenous knowledge systems. And while doing, I'm going to refer to it as IKS, So while finding my feet in the School of Science and Maths Education, I started exploring the research field of indigenous knowledge systems research. And being a teacher of note, coming from a teaching perspective from the schooling system in South Africa, I was thinking that it's a great journey to start a narrative in exploring workshops, training with teachers in the field of indigenous knowledge systems, IKS, which is a very, I would say, underrated field where there's very limited documentation and I would say research being done specifically in South Africa and zooming into the Western Cape Town, specifically in this area in South Africa. There's very little that were documented, and the idea was to train teachers into getting to know what is IKS and using this IKS as a platform to integrate it into the science classrooms, where they can use this kind of knowledge, indigenous knowledge, that are lived experience within the classroom to drive the motive of PCK, pedagogical content knowledge, in the classroom. And that will give the learners a kind of a platform to dialogue back and forth what is being talked about at home, what kind of knowledges are within the community. And just to make a note for the panel, that in various communities, as I've been exploring up in Africa, Tanzania, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, and even overseas, that each and every community hosts various pockets of knowledges referring to IKS. So the IKS that would be in the Western Cape would slightly differ from IKS that would be in Beaufort West, or maybe in PE, or slightly in Durban. So when it comes to teacher training, we must be aware that you cannot, I would say, force a certain area's indigenous knowledge upon to in a different region. It's I would say it's very dangerous, because that teacher will take that knowledge into consideration into the classroom and build up the pedagogical content knowledge around it. So that's the backdrop of the research. So I'm just going to take my, yeah. So the question at hand is, the teachers there are huge challenges in the classroom space, where exploring this indigenous knowledge research at school, it was found that teachers are grappling and they struggle to make sense of what is indigenous knowledge systems. And the question here is, how can we use IKS to support science teaching at schools in South Africa? And this is a very, as I've said in my curtain raiser, that it is a very peculiar area of research in terms of you need to know what you're working with and who you're working with and which areas you're working with to unleash the power of that indigenous knowledge in its sense of cultural relevance. Because in my earlier studies, I referred to there must be a social and cultural connection related to the indigenous knowledge that you're working with. So I've done the introduction. We all know that there are challenges in the classroom space as we speak. And those challenges is just as much as it is for the learner itself. Oh my word. let me just get back my presentation. Just as much as it is a challenging arena for the learners, is it for the teachers. And by just explaining to you what other research are saying about what is Indigenous knowledge system, and when we ask teachers at primary and school level, what do you think is IKS, then they come up with various answers, but not to the point that they know what is Indigenous knowledge. I'm just referring to these 4 bullets. And bullet number 3 is that Indigenous knowledge is local knowledge, knowledge that is unique to a given culture or society. And that is what I said earlier on, that if we take, for instance, a cultural setting or backdrop in the Western Cape, the fishermen, they would have had many, many years of knowledge when to go out to fish, what kind of fish they will be catching when the wind is blowing in Cape Town, when the southeaster is blowing. They will look at the mountains. They would say Table Mountain will have a cap on and there's wind at the local bay, and they would then decide whether that knowledge will assist them in a decision making, whether it is in agriculture, healthcare, food preparation, education, natural resources management, and a whole host of other activities within the community. So Indigenous knowledge is a very powerful kind of system that were unearthed. It was unscripted, and these knowledges were unscripted due to colonial masters, the madam and maid system, the master and slave system, and most of the document or the knowledge that were undocumented went to the grave with our forefathers. So these knowledges we need to unearth. And with my research journeys, I found that there is knowledge that are very alive, IKS that are very alive, but due to the fact that it's not been scripted down or documented down into a formal written format, it is seen as taboo, or it is seen as spiritual, or it's seen as a very higher ranking knowledge that even can end up where they say you're a Sangoma, or they say where you're a traditional healer, or you're using black magic. And those narratives comes alive when people speak about Indigenous knowledge. So the reason for the research is that why it is important that IKS needs to get to a platform into our schools, into the university books, into the labs, into the current minds of the person that are a knowledge holder. Because IKS, from a global world view, is that it will combat poverty, it will assist, just like the other presenters from this morning onwards, like Prof. Jose said, it's part of the SDGs of our university community to combat poverty, to promote sustainable development environments, and we enhance that. This local knowledge or Indigenous knowledge will take society to a global level. And we know the not the newfound word, we use globalization as much as we want to use glocalization. The key there is local. So sometimes the IKS, why Indigenous knowledge systems is important, because it is of high risk of being extinct. We can see the research are showing that not much of the newer generation, the newer folk, are speaking that language or picking it up in family gatherings, around the dinner table, and these things are just overlooked. So the underutilization of IKS in the development process is very scary. So the reason for this is that the relevance of IKS is that why the research is focusing on it is because it is within the local community. As I've said, there are pockets of knowledges, or large or huge pockets of knowledge that are unearthed. And the relevance of it is also that it will help to develop agencies across the board. NGOs, non-governmental organizations can chip into this. Donors, private sectors, they can take initiatives to develop this further and put it into perspective and get it into not just where the Department of Basic Education put it forward that indigenous knowledge is important, but there can be a global training or national training within the teaching and learning space. So the relevance also is that IKS form part of the global knowledge. It can be preserved, yes, it can be transferred from generation to generation, and it can be adopted and adapted somewhere else, so people can use it as they wish within their borders, within their cross borders. And I haven't spoken about the cross border, where we're crossing borders into other African knowledges. I'm just speaking about what is within the borders of South Africa. So speaking of the Department of Basic Education, the mere fact is that I started this research because within 2024, the Department of Science and Technology, Derek Hanekom was still the minister way back then. He started off with there must be an IKS-based relevance within the South African curriculum. And when the curriculum assessment policy statement came out of 2011, there was some idea that indigenous knowledge is part of the specific outcomes within the CAPS document. So the Department of Education really paved the way for teachers to use indigenous knowledge in the classroom. But most educators are neither familiar with the African IKS, or there was no instruction or strategies how to integrate IKS into the science classroom. And that's the reason why this study is important, to take the journey into the classroom, to explore and train those that needed to be trained. And also then, I spoke about the CAPS, the last bullet, where specific aim 3 of the curriculum assessment policy alerted that educators can contextualize school science by adopting IKS, but it's only left in that way. No science activities were integrated into IKS lesson plans and ATP, annual teaching plan, how to do justice to incorporate IKS into the discourse of science teaching at school. So educators need to get that specific training to get familiar with the context of local community indigenous knowledge system. And believe it or not, if they're from Beaufort West, you need to go and seek what kind of IKS are within that specific community. I can give various examples just for the audience that might think why indigenous knowledge is very important. I gave an earlier one about the fishermen. I can give you an example of the old pine cone. I wanted to put the picture on it, but I've totally forgot about putting the picture. But we all know the pine cone from the pine tree that falls down to the ground when it's dry. And if you put a pine cone in your home, it will either give you an indication of weather prediction. The pine cone would either open up when there is a high pressure in the area, and the pine cone would close if there's a low pressure, and that relates to weather prediction. And there are many indigenous knowledge pertaining to weather prediction in the area of Cape Town. I can give you an example of seaweed. The seaweed that we picked up on the beach, that are on the sandy side of the beach when it comes out from the ocean. If you would properly hang that at your house, and you would feel the context or the texture of it when it's moist, the seaweed will get moist when there is a high level of humidity in the air, and you will feel the texture. It would dry out if there's very little humidity in the air. So these are pockets of indigenous knowledges that are currently in the idea of teaching, training teachers. So the main aim of the Science and Indigenous Knowledge System research is, or workshops, is to equip educators with knowledge and skills. So there is a mere stimulating, culminating harmonization of cognitive ideas that are in the classroom to enhance the capacity to implement those, training educators, evaluate implementation, give instructional packages to teachers how to handle topics in a socio-scientific classroom at hand. The short description of the training or the workshops would focus, or it had focused already when I started some of the training, but limited to certain schools only, where we could get the ethical clearance from the Department of Education and deal with the research, registering the research with the department, with the university itself. But these were target groups, primary, secondary school teachers. The context were where we use pre-service teachers, our very own 3rd and 4th year in the education department. We will take them into a science classroom and explain the specific aims at hand and how to deal with those indigenous knowledges that can help and assist the teachers in natural science, life sciences, physical science, and all over. The framework that we use was based on the argumentation pattern of Tolman, the TAP, and also contiguous argumentation theory of our very own emeritus professor, Professor Uguni, Michel Uguni. And the frameworks are the lenses where we view the training and the workshop and the discussions in the classroom through. So just to give you another description, the duration of these workshops would last 60 hours bi-weekly, and it focus on the nature of science, where we train teachers on the nature of science. We would train them on the nature of indigenous knowledge system, and also various visual modules that they can use, and also the dialogical argumentation instructional model. I will just focus maybe for time on the I've already mentioned that the teachers are struggling to take note or grasp the idea of what is indigenous knowledge and how to employ it into the classroom space. But just to give the audience an idea, why DAME, or dialogical argumentation instructional model, it gives the teachers the strategy to create in a learning space a type of dialogue that are reasoning. You can reason. It gives the learner the time or the opportunity to give feedback in a sense that the lived experience, what we call home knowledge versus school knowledge, are being put into perspective, and they can communicate and relate on a social cultural decision making within the classroom. That is the dialogical argumentation instructional model. So it allows the teacher to tap into the very young minds of the learners, to see what kind of knowledge are in existence in their minds, what they're coming to school with at a particular stage, and what kind of knowledges are still embedded within the community. So using dialogical argumentation, is like a model within a model that we use to amplify and gather information and also do teacher training. The same kind of model we would use when we do training or workshops at schools for those teachers, where they can back and forth argue and come up with certain aha moments where they realize, but my grandma was talking about shoulder pain or a physiological pain in the elbow, and then she would refer to that there's due to her knee paining or elbow paining or shoulder paining, there would be some bad weather coming in, and those are the back and forth conversations that we stimulate within the workshops and training to give informed decisions on lived experience of teachers themselves. And I think I'm going to park it there for today. That is just the tip of the iceberg, but the research is still an ongoing thing. I have published a few papers on it, and I have presented some of these narratives at conferences globally, abroad, and on the African continent, and it was well taken. But thank you, Chair. That is the indigenous knowledge pertaining to teacher training and to school science integration with indigenous knowledge systems.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alvin. Quite a very interesting study, I must confess, very stimulating. I'm just looking at the Q&A box to see if there's any question for you. I have a list of questions here, but I think I will just go for one of them. I have about 5 questions, but I think I will just go for one of them quickly. So my question relates to the fact that in the course of conducting this study, have you managed to identify the possibility of cultural conflicts and traditional practices in the process of trying to accommodate the propagation of indigenous knowledge, especially in the classroom setting?
Yes, they, as I've said earlier on, there was a large amount of confusion that indigenous knowledge belongs to either what we seen as black magic or traditional folk lore that are out there where people don't want to speak. But when you embrace the audience what indigenous knowledge is, because me and the Professor Uguni always said that there is a deeper layer of indigenous knowledge that we can refer to as, I've mentioned it earlier on, as Sangoma knowledge or traditional knowledge that are very deep rooted, and that is also called African black magic, that can, and people or audience do not want to speak freely. And I can give you one example of a study that I've done in the past, is about weather prediction, where the meteorological sciences or conceptions have been tested along. We've developed a COW questionnaire, which referred to conceptions of weather. And there was one question about thunderstorms and lightning. And most of the folks would refrain from giving an answer, because the moment when you speak about lightning in the African culture, where we border cross from, because in the Western Cape, I'm seen as a colored person, a person of color, and the lightning phenomena to us was that we need to be aware of it. There is lightning in the area, and my mom would always say to us, cover the mirrors because it's dangerous. And then my dad would say, you do not go stand under a blue gum tree or any other tall tree, because you can get struck by the light, by the bolt. And so within the frame of speaking of border crossing, moving over into another culture where the same phenomenon is present, people seen it as witchcraft. Because most of the cultures in the African, up in Africa, in the Southern African context, where there's lots of lightning can be, according to their belief, can be sent to harm you. There's even articles in the newspapers that we picked up where a referee of a soccer match that weren't supposed to be played on a Sunday, the ref got struck by lightning and his pants got caught fire. And those were newspaper articles. The narrative would sound funny, but there's a belief system. If we cross the border, that indigenous knowledge has either got to do, which is mythical, it's traditional knowledge, it is either black magic, it seems to be you're either a Sangoma, when you enter into the African indigenous knowledge. But the indigenous knowledge that the university or that myself are interested is the knowledge that can be used to explain the Western science. And I forgot to tell the audience that most of our curriculum and our national Christian curriculum in the past was based on Western worldviews, where Western scientific worldviews, and the indigenous knowledge never came into the conversation as such. It was unscripted. It was put underneath the table. It was buried away with our great forefathers, and those are the issues that we're grappling with. That in our mindset, in our mind frame, there's no other thing as an indigenous knowledge that can be put on the table and be equal just as much as Western science.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alvin. Truly appreciate your response. Yeah, I'm very sure that you're still going to be around, because there will probably be more questions that will need your attention. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So we want to move quickly to the next speaker, which is Dr. Mtswaki. Thank you very much, Dr. Mtswaki, for joining. Yes, so, okay. Do we have Juliet in?
Yes, please.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so we want to go with Juliet first before we go to Dr. Mtswaki. Juliet is a doctoral student in the Department of Management and Entrepreneurship in the Faculty of Economic and Management Sciences. Her research interest is in the central theme of entrepreneurship education curriculum and its far-reaching impact on nation building. She has been investigating the alignment of entrepreneurship curriculum to the development of graduate entrepreneurs for economic development in South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, please join me to welcome Juliet as she makes her presentation. Juliet, please go ahead.
Thank you, Prof. And good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome every one of us to our research week. Standing before you is Juliet Mwake, and my supervisors are Prof. Chus Covers Iwu and Prof. Zifanayi Yandoro. So I am here to present abstracts on alignment of entrepreneurship education to the development of graduate entrepreneurs in South Africa. Introduction of the study. Unemployment in South Africa has grown exponentially by 32.9%, according to the statistics in the first quarter of 2023, which is a significant concern to everyone and also to our economy in South Africa. Focus has been channeled on the education sector to enhance entrepreneurship intention, influencing graduates to be self-employed and simultaneously become labor employers or employers of labor. Relatively recent studies in which my supervisor, Professor Chus Gavas Iwu, inclusive, have proven that graduates, entrepreneurs in South Africa had low levels of entrepreneurship intention, with them preferring paid employment. Undoubtedly, the South African higher education system is not producing sufficient entrepreneurs, possibly related to how entrepreneurship program is structured in our curriculum and delivered. Therefore, the study aims to investigate how entrepreneurship education curriculum facilitates the development of graduate entrepreneurs. This is what the researcher is looking at, that entrepreneurship education curriculum in South Africa, what it is, what is it, what is the focus? We want to know, does it facilitate entrepreneurship uptake? Entrepreneurship, effectiveness of entrepreneurship curriculum in producing graduate entrepreneurs. And not only that, how are we delivering this curriculum? We know that curriculum is the learning plan that guides the learning or the impartation of knowledge, the skills and knowledge. So this is what we are looking at. How can we deliver so that we can be able to have graduate entrepreneurs? Not those after passing through the education, they will just saturate the labor market seeking for paid employment. So the background of the study. The background focuses that the entrepreneurship curriculum is a fundamental factor in developing graduate entrepreneurs. This is because it is a learning plan that guides the impartation of skills and knowledge and that is the basic principle of developing graduate entrepreneurs. There is no two ways about it. And also, a well-designed entrepreneurship curriculum stimulates entrepreneur mindset. We can see that a lot of our graduates, they are not stimulated in taking up this challenge. They are not interested. Everybody wants to saturate the labor market. So, but we need to look back to our curriculum. Some studies we have discovered, they said that the way we are presenting this course is making it not interested. Is making them not to get interested in taking up entrepreneurship as a career option. Not only that, when we must have checked if what we have is stimulating our graduates, we must understand, we must look into how this entrepreneurship curriculum is being delivered. Is it in line with the trend we have out there? That takes me to the significance of the study. The significance of the study focuses on entrepreneurship education curriculum. We want to know what South African curriculum on entrepreneurship is all about. We want to know the content. We want to know that the importance, because until you know the importance of a thing, you cannot embrace it. And another thing here is to understand how curriculum facilitates entrepreneurship uptake. What does that mean? You know, having knowledge of the role of entrepreneurship curriculum is crucial in effectively fostering entrepreneurship uptake among our graduates. We don't want to every year we keep students keep passing out from the university and they are still looking for job. You can bear me witness what I said earlier, that our unemployment has grown exponentially to 32.9%. This is what our statistics is giving us as at the first quarter of this year. So when we must have taken into consideration all the first point and the second point, we need to reevaluate what do we have as South Africans. And after evaluation, because the studies from my professor, my supervisor, Professor Gavas Professor Shambare and Fatoki, they have identified, or they've revealed that the South African entrepreneurship curriculum based their teaching only on theory, while the practical, that is the main thing, is missing. So, and also they have identified that they only limited this course to EMS departments, economic and management sciences. So after that, we need to take it off from there to implement entrepreneurial curriculum across all fields of study in the higher institution. This now take me to the DGs and its agenda number 4, because I am marrying this study to the United Nations SDGs agenda. And my focus is on an agenda 4 that has to do with quality education. What is this agenda all about? United Nations goal is United Nations Sustainable Development Goals is a 17-point agenda aimed to guide the world into development in 2030 for socio-economic transformation to become a future powerhouse and simultaneously usher a structural transformation for economic growth and social progress. What are the objectives? The objectives is to integrate the people of the planet. Even before that, the reason why is to integrate the people of the planet, is to guide the world into socio-economic transformation, is to ensure that that we experience economic growth, is also to improve standard of living and good health improvement. And you cannot achieve this if we don't have entrepreneurs, because they are the ones that will bring, that will, their idea, the innovative idea will help us to bring, to make them to be self-employed. Not only that, they will become employers of labor that will translate into our economy.
Ms. Juliet, you have about 4 minutes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
So moving to the agenda number 4. So agenda number 4 focuses on promote long life learning, youth empowerment through entrepreneurship education, innovative ideas, skills, and knowledge to become self-employ rather. So how can I link both my study with this? So number 1, entrepreneurship curriculum guides the cultivation of quality education. Quality education will ensure that both theory and practical learning are incorporated into entrepreneurship education curriculum, because our research has discovered that it is only theoretical aspect that South Africans we are giving to our graduates. So when we have quality education focuses on theory and the practical in order for us to produce graduate entrepreneurs. Another point here is that quality education equips students with the necessary skills and knowledge to succeed in any business endeavor they take up. And the last one here is the standard education provides curriculum, that training, that skills, that knowledge that will make them to develop that will develop them to become potential entrepreneurs. When we have this, when we marry this thing together, the result is centered on this. Like I said, in order to achieve the SDGs agenda in South Africa, building a robust entrepreneurship education curriculum, we develop the following: graduate entrepreneurs with competence in creative and innovative ideas. They will have problem-solving skills and analytical ability that enable the implementation of business ideas. And not only that, it will give them confidence to launch into that business which they have, which they have idea, that idea which they have been, they have acquired, so that they can become, employers of labor. Thus, in collaborating with this study and the SDGs agenda number 4 will empower graduates in South Africa to become entrepreneurs after education. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Ms. Juliet. Truly appreciate very interesting study you have there, and quite relevant to our present day society. Right. So we're going to save all the questions for the Q&A session after the first round of the presentation. So Ms. Juliet, I see there are some questions for you, so please just hang around, and we'll call upon you to attend to those questions. We want to go in straight to our next speaker in person of Professor Derek Yu. Can we have the bio of Professor Derek Yu on the screen, please?
Yes, I'm here. Must I show my face for the whole duration?
Yes, Prof.
The
but
bandwidth,
I
I'm
actually
worried
wanted
about
your bio.
the Wi-Fi is a bit unstable in my office.
Okay.
And I just show my face maybe first minute? Yeah.
Not a problem.
Okay. So I can do the screen sharing.
Thank you very much, Prof. And good to have you.
Okay. I just assume it is 1 minute already. I know it's only 30 seconds. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so this is my presentation examining the teaching, assessment, research activities of the South African Economics Department. So I last did this study 6 years ago, but at that time I mainly focused on the research output to rank the economics department. But this time I want to redo this research like in a different way, because I don't want to repeat exactly the same thing that I did 6 years ago. Okay. So we know the new normal could be the permanent normal, that we execute our work duties in a different way. Learning and teaching now, it's no longer 100% face-to-face. We adopt a blended approach. Assessment, there is no longer guarantee. It is a sit-down format. We could have like take-home assignment or essay, something like that. Research and supervision, we no longer really need face-to-face meetings. We could have virtual meetings, making use of the technology. Obviously, collaboration in terms of research, okay, amongst the staff in the department, or maybe interdisciplinary collaboration with staff from other academic units. Okay. And then the research objectives focusing on the 17 South African economics departments. So the universities of technologies are excluded. Okay. And then we examine the staff profile, and then the undergraduate and postgraduate economics courses offered. And then I make use of a primary survey questionnaire to interview the first year's module coordinator on their assessment practices. I will show you a table later. And then the nature of publication. So this time I'm not interested to rank the departments anymore in terms of per capita research output, because I don't foresee the rankings of the departments has changed a lot in the last few years. So I rather want to do a breakdown on the nature of publication. Is it long authorship or collaboration, and the identity of collaborators? I will explain in a second. Okay, this I will do it brief. The pros and cons of research collaborations. The pros will be like working together as a team, economies of scales, generating new ideas and knowledge. It could be easier to win research funds or research grant if you have a research team. Okay, the cons will be if we have more people, then obviously it means more communication, more meeting, time spent on coordination, or even conflict management. Okay, people have different ideas. Sometimes there could be some, I wouldn't say it is negative, it could be a positive conflict sometimes. Okay. And then the teaching, as I said, 6 years ago, I did a study to look at that, but it's just 1 or 2 tables on the courses of undergraduate and postgraduate courses. But this time I will examine learning and teaching more deeply. Okay. And then the how question, it wasn't done at all. This is why I will make use of a primary survey. And then assessment practices, the past literature, there were a few studies that look at the level of difficulty of the assessment papers in connection with Bloom's taxonomy. And then there was recently a study done by a few colleagues at EMS to derive a multi-dimensional assessment index by considering a wide range of assessment-related indicators. Okay, and then the publications, I will break down into 6 groups. First one would be long authorship, self-explanatory. B would be collaboration amongst the staff or students from the same department, the economics department. You can argue it means like research leadership. Okay. And then C would be collaborate. This is interdisciplinary collaborating or co-author with colleagues from other academic units at the same university. D would be the external network. We collaborated with other academics from other tertiary institutions, but they could be some other research network in the country, so they fall outside academia, so they could come from public sector, private sector, NGO. Then F would be the overseas research network. This is just a hypothetical example. I'll be brief. What if an article falls under one group? It is possible. So this is a hypothetical example. What if I have 5 authors in this article? V and W works at the same department, UWC Economics Department. Then the third author actually works in Department of Political Studies, UWC. So that implies interdisciplinary collaboration. Maybe the fourth author works at UCT, another South African academia or tertiary institution. Then the fifth author works in South Africa, but not in academia, Western Cape government. So this publication falls under group B, C, D, and E. They're assuming it is 1 point or 1 unit per publication, then I allocate a quarter of a point to each group. So this is just a hypothetical example. Okay, and then I will look at the faculty calendars, the departmental websites, assuming the websites are up to date. I have no control over them, to find out the learning and teaching related information. And then the survey I mentioned earlier, I want to find out if they use local or international textbook that relates to that decolonization of curriculum point that was commonly discussed maybe 10 years ago. Whether we use technology, live streaming, or pre-recorded video, or none of both. Different types of assessment. In addition to module tests, do they offer tutorials, assignments, and then the scope? Are all the chapters included for final exam? Because some higher education literature recently talked about that. It may be better to assess students in smaller chunks, instead of including all chapters. Maybe 60%, 70% of the chapters can be included for final exam to improve students' academic success. So this one, at the start of 2022, it's just the staff qualification. This is what happens at UWC. Obviously, there could be some unfilled vacancies. I wouldn't know. Okay, and then I think we are doing quite well actually. Over 50% of staff with PhD, and then we have staff with NRF rating. Yeah, and then some departments have research units. So there's a huge amount of information. I'm not going to go through that, but you can see the staff size fluctuated quite a lot, as low as 8, as high as 39 at UCT. Okay, just a few more slides. And then the honors program, I think that obviously it includes the research essays and then the total number of modules, including the essays, between 6, as low as 6 at UNISA, as high as 9 at various universities. Masters, all of them offer full thesis program. Only half of them offer coursework. I think it's mainly the departments with large staff size. They have the capacity to offer coursework. Okay. And then there are field tables just to show the different undergraduate and honors courses offered. And at level 3, not all the economics department offers micro 3 and macro 3. And this is the weird finding that many economics departments, weirdly, they do not offer honors research methods module. So I'm not sure how they teach students to develop the research writing skills. I'm not sure if they offer some special 0 credit block teaching classes or ad hoc writing workshops. I'm not sure, but at least in our department, we offer the honor research methods module. And then this one has to do with the questionnaire. Okay, so not all the departments respond. I think at least we have 11 out of 17 respond. So most of them use local textbooks. Live streaming, it is interesting. Only one university, UniSulu, adopts live streaming, but a lot of departments use pre-recorded videos to supplement the face-to-face contact. And then the number of continuous assessments is interesting, as low as 3, as high as 17. 17 is quite frightening with one module. And then quite a few departments, they no longer include 100% of all the chapters for exam. You can see some like Stellenbosch, UWC, Mandela University, we would include maybe 70% of the prescribed chapters, maybe from week 4, week 5 as the exam scope. Okay. And then this is just 2 more slides, then I'm done. It's just the 10 departments I can obtain the publications information, and then the breakdown of the 6 types of publication I mentioned earlier, and then I really derive the per capita, per annum research output. The goal is to have each staff publish 1 article per year. So you can say Stellenbosch just made it actually, and this is UWC. And it is the interesting thing, the 2 bottom ranked departments, they have a highest proportion of long author publications. So does it imply long author publications? Obviously, it proves our ability to produce independent research. But if we isolate ourselves completely, would it have some negative impact on the research output as suggested in the table? Then I think FIT's economics department seems to be most balanced, actually. You see this 20, 20, 20%, and this is actually doing quite well. Yeah, and UWC is ranked 7th out of the 10 departments that we have the research information available. Okay, this is the conclusion. So what is the right balance between learning, teaching, research supervision, and community engagement? So think about it, food for thought. And in terms of research collaboration, if each type of collaboration has its pros and cons, so people could argue a long authorship is important, but if all our publications are long author, does it mean we neglect our inexperienced staff, that we are not colleagues, that we are not playing the research leadership role? And collaboration, some could argue it is important, but the other side of the story is that some could argue, what if the person is a free rider hiding behind wanting to do as little as possible? So no yes, right or wrong answers, actually. Okay. And then this is the interesting one. What is the percentage of postgraduate, let's say masters and PhD theses that turn out into publication? Some international studies found that this proportion is very low, about 20 to 25%. Is it because we don't have the time to do that? Because we have a new group of students to supervise the following academic year? We just don't have the time to convert the past graduates' theses into publications. And then my second last suggestion is that maybe another department at UWC can be encouraged to conduct a similar study to find out what happens to the same department at other universities. And then my last point is that it's not on this bullet that if collaboration actually improves the research output of fellow colleagues, etc., should we revisit our research subsidy? That because collaboration is a bit of personal sacrifice, that we win a certain 12,000 research subsidy, but it is shared amongst the colleagues. So obviously I don't know how the budget works. So we consider like giving like a once-off stipend or maybe an award or something, or extra promotion point for the colleagues who play the leadership role to groom the research careers of the younger, relatively inexperienced colleagues. And then this is just the last one, just to answer the question. I can only answer on the economics department, my home department, percentage of masters and PhD theses that were converted to accredited publications. I have the data in my department from 2016 to 2022. So masters, about 1/3, they end up being publications. And then PhD, I think we did quite well. More than half of the PhD theses were converted to accredited publications. So it'll be interesting to know what is happening in other academic units. Yeah, so that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. That was a very, very insightful study there. Quite stimulating. Truly appreciate that. Yes, if we have any question for you, we'll definitely pass it across during the Q&A session, which is going to come in right after the next presentation. So the next presenter is Dr. Mswaki. We have Dr. Mswaki who is going to be presenting next. Dr. Mswaki, thank you so much for joining, and we look forward to hearing your presentation. Dr. Mswaki, are you there, please?
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, if the host, if it's possible, if they can give me the rights on the video, I'm unable to.
So for you to be able to show your video, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it will be granted shortly. I'm sure the host has taken note of that.
Okay. All right. I can start. My name is Dr. Ntoki Matlala. I'm from Department of Management and Entrepreneurship and Faculty of EMS, right? And on today's presentation, my research topic, it is about the relationship between the indigenous entrepreneurship education and sustainable development in South African context, right? And the layout of my presentation, I will take you through to the introduction, literature review, the methodology, the results and discussion, and also the conclusion of the study. Let me firstly, like what made me to look at this study, it is because of unemployment among the youth, which is a pressing issue in South Africa. And South Africa economy has struggled to create enough jobs to absorb the growing youth population. And South Africa, therefore, it is in a very a position or a bad position where they must focus on job creations in sectors with the potential of growth and invest in education and skill development to prepare its workforce for these opportunities. And when we look around, we see that many young South Africans are forced to enter the informal economy due to a lack of formal employment opportunities. While informal work can provide some income, it often lacks a job security, and it also lacks the benefits and legal protections. So therefore, indigenous entrepreneurship education, I think that it is critical for this study or for me to pursue in this study. With indigenous entrepreneurship education is critical for nurturing entrepreneurship attitude. It will enhance the business skill and fostering innovation among prospective entrepreneurs. However, despite the recognized importance of entrepreneurship for economic development in South Africa, the scope and quality of entrepreneurial education, especially for the indigenous community, leave much to be researched. And this study will explore the link between the sustainable development and indigenous entrepreneurship in South Africa. This include for me and other scholars to understand the current landscape of indigenous entrepreneurship, assessing the status of entrepreneurship education for these communities, and exploring the ways to enhance this education to foster sustainable development. Let me, from what other presenters have already mentioned, just to take you through what we mean when we say indigenous entrepreneurship education, will therefore generally mean the type of education that is obtainable in Africa. Entrepreneurial education is based on the African culture, heritage, and is defining what African view see entrepreneurship. This means that education should consider the community's specific culture and environmental context and focus on developing the attitudes and personal traits related to the social responsibility and environmental protection. Moreover, Strachan, which is the other study, argued that entrepreneurial indigenous education means strengthening the social competencies as a citizen, taking responsibility for oneself and others, the environment and other environment. Entrepreneurial indigenous education, it equips ordinary citizens with knowledge about the indigenous products and mineral resources that can be used to instill entrepreneurship to better all African lives, which we are currently struggling to mention the few unemployment that we see in South Africa. And indigenous entrepreneurship education provides indigenous students, it will provide them with the knowledge and skill and attitude to instill the entrepreneurial success so that they can resolve the issue that we have just mentioned. At the individual level, education should encourage a proactive orientation towards societal and environmental issues. In contrast, at the business level, it should promote a philosophy of doing business socially and environmentally sustainable. This can lead to a competitive advantage and superior financial performance for the business while contributing to community sustainable development, right? And the theories that I have looked at for this is the theory of culture. Culture is a complex concept that characterizes a group of people, which in South Africa we have a diverse culture. It includes the values, the beliefs, the knowledge, the habits, and expected behavior. And culture play a significant role in shaping individuals' perception and cognitive processes. It can directly or indirectly influence the level of entrepreneurial activities, and scholars have debated the impact of culture on indigenous entrepreneurial activities and argue that culture is the leading factor that explains different levels of entrepreneurial activity between the nations. And so the other theory that I did look at, it is the experiential learning theory. We found that the indigenous entrepreneurs of education often emphasize the learning through practical experiences, and indigenous entrepreneurs can benefit from hands-on learning, which may involve starting and running the small businesses, participating in community projects, and engaging with traditional practices. And lastly, the other theory that we looked at, it is the empowerment theory. Empowerment theory guides indigenous entrepreneurship education in fostering the agency needed for individuals to take control of their economic destinies. It emphasizes building the capabilities and capacities of indigenous entrepreneurship. So therefore, with that background, it made me to formulate hypothesis, which is the education and self-employment, unemployment, and new business registration. As the authors, we took a specific perspective of entrepreneurship, looking at it through the lens of occupation and emphasizing the importance of sustainable development goals. And this study adopted the mentioned hypothesis, firstly, education. Higher education institutions are critical to entrepreneurial climate in the prospective regions, and this view fosters an interest in developing an education that promotes and enhances entrepreneurship. Moreover, the studies, they argue that indigenous entrepreneurs education, meaning strengthening the social competencies as a citizen, taking responsibility of oneself. And it was also found that indigenous education empower a society to be well-informed and be an active society that changes its surroundings. Whereas the indigenous entrepreneurship can benefit from hands-on learning, which may involve starting and running the small business, participating in community projects, and engaging in traditional practices. And nextly, the next one is self-employment. With the self-employment, multiple studies have examined the experience of self-employment in individuals and small business owners. And the third one is unemployment, which already we have mentioned that it is the pressing issue among most of the African countries. And the new business registration, this will help. It will help with the countries if we've got multiple business registrations, and it will enhance the economy, and it will also create the job opportunities. And for this study, the methodology I've collected the secondary data the secondary data from the World Bank, data from the statistical data to help me to get the findings and the findings which I've used the tool like the structural model to help me to get to the findings. And I'm going to go directly to the findings, which the researcher used. As I mentioned, I've used the structural model to determine the key factors impacting indigenous entrepreneurship, education, and sustainability development. And the dependent variable employed was sustainability digital goals index, which I found on the World Bank database. While the independent variables included in the regression, it was education, self-employment, unemployment, and new business registration. And from the findings, it shows that entrepreneurship education is significantly associated with sustainability development in the South African context, particularly considering the country's socio-economic challenges. And the significance of entrepreneurship education and sustainability development has widely acknowledged by different authors. And entrepreneurship education equips learners with the skill to start and manage the businesses, stimulating economic growth and job creation. And secondly, the association between sustainability development and self-employed is also significant from the results or from the tools we have used, which self-employment promotes economic sustainability by promoting entrepreneurship and creating jobs essentially for economic growth stability. And this is particularly relevant in South Africa, where we have a higher unemployment rate. And also from the result, it shows that unemployment has a negative or it is insignificant in relation to sustainability development, which I found very interesting from those results. And we therefore this study will therefore encourage the government, the higher education institution, to look into developing a curriculum that it is Africanized, that it is Africa specific, and that then it can also help the unemployment rate we are facing in South Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Msaki, for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, and other postgrad students that are in attendance, we will go straight into the question and answer session. With the question and answer session, I just want to, I have a question from my side to Professor Yu. Professor Yu, with respect to the fantastic work you're doing, I just have a quick question. What are the strategies that you have in mind to translate the thesis that is being submitted within, for instance, your department where the study is being conducted, to transform them into publications? What are the strategies that you have in mind?
Okay, I can't speak for other colleagues. I can only talk about my own experience. It involves a bit of like gut feeling, a bit of subjective interpretation. First of all, the master's thesis, again, this is subjective opinion. So let's be honest that not all the master theses are publishable because there are really some relatively weaker students. So I gave them a relatively more straightforward topic that may not involve too much empirical data analysis. And deep inside my heart, my primary aim is to really help these students to get the master's degree, spend as few years as possible on the thesis, graduate. But when I read through the thesis, I know that there isn't, I can't speak for other areas, but for economics, a lot of journals require some original empirical data analysis. So I know certain theses, I know they are not publishable. So I have to be, because time is limited. So I know that these students or these theses, the main goal is to help them to get the master's degree. They will fare well in the labor market. But I know I should not spend time to convert these theses into publications. And then another group, I already had some gut feeling, the original empirical findings, or maybe the literature review is so strong, it could just be like a scoping review, purely literature review, journal article. Some journals still accept that kind of highly qualitative literature review article. Then I would go for that. And my success rate would be, I still have some good ones that are turned down. I'm quite honest. Maybe if I decided to convert a thesis into a publication, maybe my success rate is about maybe 60% more or less. PhD, again, there is one or two that I have some doubts whether they are publishable, but the others I successfully published one, maybe sometimes two publications. I know one or two of my colleagues that they successfully convert all 3 essay chapters of the thesis into 3 journal articles. Yeah, so they did much better than me, to be honest. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Truly appreciate that response. For Juliet, there are 2 questions for you, Juliet. The first question is asking that how is it possible in sciences, considering the technical knowledge requirement, and that speaks to the basis upon which your study is being conducted, entrepreneurship for graduate students. So the question to you is that how possible is this in sciences, considering the fact that in sciences there's a need for technical knowledge to have been acquired by the students? Then I will go to the next question once you're done with that. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Considering what the question, yes, it is possible in the sense that what we are doing is to equip you with the knowledge. As a science student, you will become, one day you will want to be on your own. As you want to be on your own, we must equip you on the knowledge, how you handle with your human resource, how you handle in marketing, how you you coordinate your account system. So we equip you how to handle the skills needed. So there is no technicality in this. It's just to embed the knowledge that you will need when you open your own business, so you can know how to run your business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then there's I'm not sure how this is a question, but there are quite a lot of question mark there. Entrepreneurship for science, role of mindsets, role models, role of the curriculum or co-curriculum, role of technology transfer by the CSIR, for example. So I think this is more or less like a follow-up to the possibility of the first question, asking the different stakeholders and their roles in making sure that this comes to fruition. So I think, yeah, I'm not sure. I see someone's hand is up. Dominic Bowers, I see your hand is up. I'm not sure if you'll be able to talk, but the procedure is for you to type in your question so that the speakers will be able to respond to your question. So if you don't mind, you can just type your question and it will be channeled to the appropriate speaker. Yes, so thank you so much to everyone who has been part of the first phase of this session this afternoon. Dominic, are you there? I see. Okay, I see your hand is down. Okay. Yeah, do you have the opportunity to ask your question orally? I'm not sure. If you don't mind, you can type in your question. Then it will be channeled to the appropriate speaker. Feel free to type in your question. and it will be channeled to the appropriate speaker. And I think if you also don't mind, you can also impute your email address, your student email address, such that whatever response the speaker gives, when it's been transcribed, it can be forwarded to you for you to look around it. So we will be resuming in the next couple of minutes at exactly 30 or 2:30, that's 14:30, for our next round of speakers. We have Dr. Brydon, we have Mr. Lucky, we have Dr. Pau for the next round of session. And I promise you it's going to be very exciting. So please don't go away. You can just still log on, and then we will see you shortly. And I think we're still using the same link, so you don't need to go and look for another link. So we're still using the same link for the sessions. Thank you. Can the host please permit me to share my video or start my video, as the case may be? So we want to go into the next round of presentation, and we have with us as the first speaker, Dr. Humphrey. Dr. Humphrey, thank you so much for availing yourself to be part of Research Week, UWC. We truly appreciate your presence, and we look forward to hearing your presentation. Please go ahead, Dr. Humphrey.
Perfect. Thank you, Olu. Can I just confirm that you can see my presentation?
100%.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So as Olu mentioned, I'm Humphrey Bryden from the Department of Statistics and Population Studies within the Faculty of Natural Sciences. And the presentation, or the topic of the presentation for today, as you can see, is profiling student completion times within the Faculty of Natural Sciences at UWC. And just to mention at this point that this study is, I'm part of a study group that conducted this study, and it was actually, the analysis was spearheaded by two master students within our department, and then assisted by Professor René Pligno, Professor Sarel Steele, as well as Elizabeth Boy. So when talking about completion times and getting into the problem statement, we have to talk about throughput rates. And typically, throughput rates are analyzed in a retrospective manner and very program specific. So when we say programs perspective, sorry, not program specific, they are analyzed from a program perspective. And when we say from a program perspective, essentially, as an example, if we have a program that has a low throughput, then we look at, is there a module or modules that are causing this low throughput rate? And what we wanted to do with the study was to add on to that analysis and say, could we actually add student profiles onto the various completion times within each program? And then if we are able to determine these student profiles, then these student profiles could be used to inform future intervention mechanisms and or selection criteria. Now, with me saying selection criteria, I just want to caveat the study and what the presentation today to say that we are not talking about causality. Okay, we are talking about association or correlation. If we talk about causality, then the results of the study could be used to enforce, I guess, selection criteria, and that is not what we are saying with the study. What we are saying is that there is some association or correlation with student profiles and specific programs, as you will see in the results. So again, the study is not saying that there is causality. The study is saying that there may or may not be some association or correlation with what we are seeing in the results. Now, just to go through the agenda, I'm going to start with the background, the objectives, and the scope. And then I also do appreciate that I've got the afternoon shift here as well. So the methodology, I've got no statistical formula there. Everything's in words. And then I'll finish off with the results, the conclusion, and some future work. I say future work there because this is an initial study. We've only just done one sort of repetition of the study, and we do see that there is some future work that can be done and some improvements that can be made to the analysis that was undertaken. So just to look at some background on the study. So currently selection processes, and also when we analyze throughput rates within the Faculty of Natural Sciences, we typically focus on NSC results. So what did the student get in high school in terms of their NSC results, and does that inform their throughput rates? And what we did with this study was we added, additional features to this analysis by including socioeconomic and demographic features. So from a socioeconomic perspective, we looked at school quintile, the NSFAS flag, so whether the student had NSFAS funding, a residence flag, whether the student was in res or not, and then also a bursary flag, whether the student had a bursary or not. In terms of demographic features, we looked at race, gender, their home province, the home language, and then as well as the English home flag. So what was their language that they spoke at home as well. And then just to mention in terms of the socioeconomic features, the NSFAS flag and the bursary flag, what we looked at with the study was we actually combined those to actually say whether a student had funding or not. So later on in the results, you will see there is a bursary feature, but just to note that that is the NSFAS and the bursary flag that has been combined. And then we also had these study features, which was essentially just a way for us to track the student during the various years, because we are looking at completion times, and therefore we needed a way to track the students over the various years. Now, what were the objectives of the study? And there are two very clear objectives for the study. The first one being that we wanted to determine the throughput rate for each program in the Faculty of Natural Sciences. And then once we had these throughput rates, we then wanted to add on to these throughput rates a profile or characteristics of students within specific programs according to certain completion times. So as the diagram shows, that we moved from throughput rates to student profiles, and then within those profiles could we identify unique characteristics of students. In terms of the scope for the study, so what was included, what was excluded. So what was included was we looked at all undergraduate programs within the Faculty of Natural Sciences. We looked at the mainstream programs as well as the equivalent extended programs. We looked at students with NSC results. first-time entry students registered between 2015 and 2019, and then also transfer students within the Faculty of Natural Sciences. What was excluded from this study was postgraduate programs outside of the Faculty of Natural Sciences, although we do think that the methodology can be applied to other faculties, but just for this specific study, we only looked at the Faculty of Natural Sciences, and then students who did not write the NSC exam. And the reason for that is that there's a separate study that must still be conducted, unfortunately, where we need to do a conversion from, say, for example, your Cambridge or your private schools, where we need to do a conversion of those marks or those scores to the NSC equivalent. And so we have not done that yet. So therefore, those students were excluded from the study. And then also what was excluded was the transfer students outside of the Faculty of Natural Sciences. So those students who transferred outside, who started in the Faculty of Natural Sciences, but then transferred outside of the Faculty of Natural Sciences. Just in terms of the programs that we looked at, there were 19 in total. Obviously, the B-Farm program does not have an equivalent extended program, but all other 9 programs do have an equivalent extended program. So therefore, we looked at 19 programs in total. Now, I'm talking about completion times. And just to give you an idea of what we said when we're talking about completion time. So for the study, a target variable was designed in order to cater for the specific completion times, and that target variable had 4 categories. So the first one was where a student did not complete. The second one where the student completed in N plus M, where M is greater than 2. So that's what we consider a late completion. And then we also have where the student completed in N, so the minimum time for a specific program, N plus 1 and N plus 2. So that was what we considered an on-time or acceptable completion. And then we also have the fourth category, is those students that could potentially complete. Now, just to note that students that were marked as they could potentially complete were excluded from the current analysis, because those are students that are still currently in the system, and therefore they would have, let's say, muddled the results a bit. So we excluded them from this specific study until we could figure out, or until we can figure out how to include them in those other categories. In terms of the methodology, so here is the formula, as we call it, for the specific study. Again, I appreciate that I'm in the afternoon session, so there's no formula in front of you, but in terms of the analysis and the methodology of that analysis, we looked at a descriptive analysis to determine the completion rates for each program. And then we also used decision trees in order to profile, or we constructed decision trees in order to profile students according to specific completion times, using those features and that variable that I previously mentioned. Now, jumping straight into the results. So this is for the mainstream programs, and they've been ordered according to, if I can get the mouse, they've been ordered according to the minimum completion time. So we can see BSc Environmental and Water Science has the highest minimum time completion of 62%. And then BSc Mathematical and Statistical Sciences has the lowest minimum time completion of 14%, also the highest did not complete rate of 46%. So you can see if we break down, and this is what was very specific for the study, what we wanted to do was break down each of these 3 throughput rates into very specific completion times. So minimum time plus 1, minimum time plus 2, and then minimum time of N plus M, where M is greater than 2, so that we could actually dive deeper into each of these specific completion times. Now, just to note at this point, the reason that these 2 programs are highlighted, obviously I appreciate that I cannot show you all 19 programs, so the rest of the results is going to focus on these 2 specific programs, that is B-Farm and as well as BSc Biotechnology. If we look just quickly at the throughput rates of the extended programs, we can see that biotechnology has the highest minimum time completion rate of 48%, and now the BSc Physical Sciences has the lowest on-time or minimum time, completion rate of 12%, but also the highest did not complete rate of 65%. So these were the throughput rates, and obviously, as I said, we wanted to attach student profiles to each of these completion times. And And just looking a bit further into some of the descriptive analysis, if we look at the B-Farm program, and we look at the distribution of this target variable, so the completion times by province, we can see, and apologies for looking this way, the slides are this side, but the camera is this side. We can see that from Mpumalanga, we've got quite a high on-time or acceptable completion rate there of 90%. And then the second highest one there was from KwaZulu-Natal with, let's say, 79%. The 4 provinces that are highlighted there in red, the frequency counts were a bit low there, so we did not want to focus for this descriptive analysis. So we did not actually want to report or infer anything from these results as the frequency counts were a bit low there. If we stick with the pharmacy program and looking at the bursary flag, so whether a student had funding or not, we can see just from this simple descriptive analysis that there is a clear indication that a student having a bursary most likely will result in a higher on-time completion rate. We can see that students that have a bursary, the on-time completion rate is, or the acceptable completion time is much higher as compared to those students that did not have any funding. So again, we're starting to see something very clear here just in this basic descriptive analysis. If we extend that now to the quintile, so the high school from which the student came, we can see for quintile 1, a very, let's not say surprising, but a very nice result is we can see for quintile 1, 76% on-time or completion rate there, and for quintile 5, so what's considered your best school, I guess, or your most supported or whatever school, 83%. So we can see a comparable result in between quintile 1 in quintile 5, and then we've also got this missing category where it's 71%. Now this is not that well, in terms of the data that we had, we just couldn't, or it was not specified from which quintile the student came there. But just to give you some more background on this quintile 1, and while the quintile 1 is higher, so this is, we still need to do some further analysis as to figure out why the quintile 1 is 76%. But I have had some discussions with colleagues from other institutions that are doing similar analysis. And our assumption there is that there are very directed support programs at quintile 1 schools. And what we want to do in future analysis is figure out whether those support programs that are aimed at these quintile 1 schools, if that is having an effect, or is that the effect that we are seeing here that is following through. Now looking at the profiles, so again, as I said, we wanted to use decision trees to profile students, and just sticking with the pharmacy program again, overall, the on-time or acceptable completion rate is 79%. But if we use a decision tree, we can increase, let's say increase the probable, this on-time or acceptable completion rate to 97% if we focus on students that have a bursary or where it is not specified or missing according to the decision tree, if it is a female student, and whether that student has a 6 or 7 or it is missing in life sciences, so going back to their high school results. Now, again, coming back to, we are not talking about causality here. We are talking about a correlation. So we can see that students that have a bursary or it is not specified, or if it is a female student and a 6 or 7 or it is missing in life sciences, we can see that the probability of them having an on-time or acceptable completion rate is increased from 79% to 97%. If we look at the BSc Biotechnology, the overall is 73% for on-time or acceptable completion. And if we then look at the, in terms of the decision tree or the profile that we're looking for here for on-time or acceptable completion, if a student has a bursary, so again, the bursary or funding is coming through, or is not specified, if they come from a quintile 3 or higher school, or whether that's not specified, and also the APS score is between 40.5 and 45.5, so quite a high APS score. So again, the probability of a student completing on time or in an acceptable time can be increased from 73% to 99% by just focusing on these specific features. if we look, sticking with biotechnology, but now looking at the extended program, the overall is 69%, and the probability can be increased to 96%. Again, if we see that the student has a bursary or is missing or not specified, and then again with the life sciences, if the life sciences is a 6 or 7 or not specified. Now again, and I just want to reiterate again, we are not talking about causality here, we are talking about correlation. So what we need to do is try and use these profiles that we are seeing here and try to figure out, can we infer some association or correlation between students with this specific profile and why they have a higher probability of completing on time or in an acceptable time. So just in conclusion, and I know I have not presented all the programs here, but in conclusion, we can see that a student having a bursary or funding could possibly increase the probability of an on-time or acceptable time to completion, regardless of the program. Just the 3 that I've shown you now, we can see that the bursary flag, so where the student had funding, was always included. And then besides that bursary flag, what we also see, and we've looked at this in the other programs, is that there are specific or a unique set of features attached to each student and their on-time or acceptable completion time. And then also what we also can see is that using the decision trees is a good determinant of unique profiles within each program. In terms of future work that we would like to add to this analysis, so we want to address the missing data, for example, the APS scores and the quintiles, and that's not to say that it's missing, well, in terms of the data that we were using, so we were using the HEMIS database plus some information that we received from our faculty office, but there does seem to be some disconnect in how the data has been captured, and so we do want to address this going forward so that we can, because as you can see from the results, the missing data, let's call it that, or the not specified data is being included in those profiles. So we do want to look at how can we address this. We do want to look at some continued development of the decision tree. In some of the other programs, we've used the decision tree. It doesn't seem to be stable there, but we do want to look at that. We do want to add some new features. There's just 2 of them that we have highlighted there. And then also we do think that this is a good methodology to profile students according to completion time. So we do want to expand this methodology onto other faculties within UWC. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Humphrey. Truly appreciate that. That's a very interesting study there. And I think, especially when you look at the institutional operation plan for UWC with respect to postgraduate recruitment, retention and completion. That's a very, very interesting study. And I hope that we will have a handful of questions in relation to that when we get to the Q&A time. So we want to go straight to our next presenter. Our next presenter is Mr. Lucky Sibanda. Mr. Lucky Sibanda, are you there?
Yes.
Please, you can put on your camera and you share your slide and take it away. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lucky Sibanda, a doctoral student within the Management and Entrepreneurship Department. I'm supervised by Professor Chukskevas Iwu. Right, so my topic is it's not showing clearly here. So it's a systematic literature review which focuses on student support and student success. So this is the structure of my presentation: the introduction and background, methodology, analysis, findings, and recommendations, and of course references. So this literature review is part of my PhD thesis. So I intend to look at the various student support initiatives which are available within the South African universities. So again, in South Africa, we are aware, not just in South Africa, across the world, the student success rates remains relatively too low. And there are a number of support initiatives. Of course, the initiatives can be either academic or non-academic. So there is a need to further look into the nature of the studies which are available in South Africa to see and perhaps see if maybe the researchers can do some more work just to see on what has to be done, so that at least the available supportive structures or student support services can contribute towards the academic throughput rates within the South African universities. So I did a search from 2 databases. So firstly, I'd focus on student supporting, and of course, I'd also focus on papers which looks at the academic success. So according to York, Gibson, and Rankin 2015, there are some elements which are being used to measure academic success, including academic achievement, satisfaction, and attainment of learning objectives. So I just picked a few. So these are going to be used as part of the systematic literature review search. So still, this is as a result of the reason or the quest trying to understand why the throughput rates remains relatively low, despite some work done by various universities. So I adopted a PRISMA methodology, and I searched from 2 databases, the Web of Science and Scopus. So from the title, I was searching student supporting, and from the title, keywords, and the abstracts, I searched the other keywords which measures academic success. So from that search of just from the title alone, I got about 90 papers from Web of Science and 116 papers from Web of from Scopus, which show that there are a number of papers which indeed focus on the student success, student support in South Africa. Then I had to narrow them down. So I had to look at the, apart from the title, I had to search from the title, abstracts, and keywords on these other words which measures, the keywords which measures academic success, which are indicated here on my screen. After a number of exclusions, including like the language, the country, which is South Africa, I had a total of 14 papers, 6 from Web of Science and 8 from Scopus. Then I had to do some further eliminations, such as like removing the duplicates, and also just paying attention to the finer details, such as like one of the papers was not focusing at a South African university, so I had to remove that one, and I remained with 7 papers. So this is an ongoing research which will form part of my literature review as part of my PhD. So what I'm going to be looking at, I'll be analyzing the population size, the methodology, the research outcomes, and the contribution towards student success among the elements which I'm going to be looking at. So, so far, the preliminary results are that there are a number of papers which focuses on student success in South Africa. However, there are very few which clearly indicate the effort to improve the student throughput rates. So of course, these are preliminary findings. So I'll dig deeper just to further understand what the other papers which were eventually excluded ended up not clearly indicating or not clearly showing their contribution towards student throughput rates. Then, of course, most papers adopted a qualitative study methodology. Hence, the numbers were or the population was very small in most of the papers. And part of the papers were from TVET college, distance and contact mode of learning, and none was from the private HEI. Looking at the participants, looking at the researchers, there are some papers which had single authors and some had multiple authors. And of course, I couldn't find a paper which collaborated among institutions. And also some of the papers would just focus perhaps maybe on one department or just maybe on one cohort. And of course, perhaps maybe as part of the future studies, maybe there's a need for the use of various methodologies such as quantitative, and also to look at broader population sizes, and as well maybe doing longitudinal studies, and as well maybe looking at multiple levels of studies, such as apart from first years, maybe moving up to like postgraduate, of course, like honors postgraduate, not master's or PhD. So that is my start so far. I'm still working on it. So for now, those are the preliminary findings, and these are my references. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lucky Sibanda. Also, another very interesting study there. And I think it will be really great to see what you eventually come up with. Please, if you have questions, please drop them in the Q&A chat box so that each of the speakers will be able to respond to the questions that relate to their study or be referred to them. We have the next speaker, Dr. Pau Madiza. Dr. Madiza's study is looking at exploring grade 1 English first additional language learner reading practices at selected schools in the Western Cape province. So Dr. Pau is going to take us on her study, on her research rather, and we look forward to hearing her presentation. Dr. Pau, please. Thank you so much for joining, and please go ahead and.
Thank you, Chair. Let me just share my. I don't know whether I'm able to share my. Okay. I hope you can see, Chair, my shared.
Yes, we can see it clearly.
Okay. All right. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As the chair has said, I am Pau Madikiza, contract lecturer in the language education department from the Faculty of Education. And my study, the paper that I'm writing is on exploring grade 1 English first additional language learners reading practices at a selected school. So it's going to be one school in the Western Cape, or it's one school because I have already identified the school, and this paper is a work in progress because I have started with collecting data. One would ask why this study? This study emanates from a place of maybe trying to develop myself as a teacher transiting to a practitioner. So I wanted to check what is happening in schools, because I have been out of touch with the classroom due to my studies for quite few years. So I have not been into class. So getting now into the space of dealing with pre-service teachers and who are teachers who are doing foundation phase program. So I wanted to know what can I contribute as their lecturer in trying to meet up with what is happening at schools, vice versa, to what is happening here at the university. So I will be looking at that. Then this study will be looking at the background, the aims of the study, methodology, findings, look at the findings. Okay. So a study for part 2D, I think it's part 2D, 2015, says primary educators are crucial in stimulating their children so that a solid foundation is laid for later reading and writing. So, as I said, I also wanted to sharpen my skills so that I can provide my pre-service teachers with information that will help them be the teachers they aspire to be. So I want to get the empirical evidence of what happens in schools or in the schools selected grade 1 learners, and also to observe how teachers teach reading and obtain learners' reactions during reading classes. Initially, I wanted to interview learners, but I was told when I got into the school that I can only interview teachers. So I will be only observing the learners in class, then interview the teachers. So I will be looking at that. Also, I am trying to collaborate with the foundation phase teachers. So this study, in a way, is paving a way for me to collaborate with the foundation phase teachers, so as to help my students. And there is a program that I'm trying to introduce, which is teaching reading, or how I teach reading. So I just want to invite these foundation phase teachers for sessions in my classes. So by doing this paper, I am just paving a way towards the direction of collaborating with foundation phase teachers. So that's one of the aims of this paper as I am working on it. So a report by the Eastern Cape Department of Education 2022 states one of the 5 fundamental goals for the next decade. And it was in a statement that was made by the president of the country, President Cyril Ramaphosa, that emphasizes the importance of reading with meaning for children by the age of 10. And there is also an array of studies that show or reveal a low level of performance in that show that level of performance of grade, especially in the foundation phase, foundation and intermediate, more on intermediate phase, that they struggle to read with meaning. So this is a study by Nkomo 2021, Pels 2021, and the Department of Eastern Cape Department of Education 2022. So that the progress in international reading literature studies, which was PROUS 2021, reveals that 81% of grade 4 learners in South Africa cannot read with meaning or comprehension. And if I can take you just not 2 weeks ago, just a week ago, Chair, we launched a center for reading and teaching in the department, which will be focusing on isiXhosa. But in the seminar there was a seminar in the morning. In the seminar, there were discussions around reading, and there were questions that were put in front, or like, who is to be blamed around this issue of learners and being unable to read with meaning in grade 4. And as I was listening, the people there, others were saying the problem is with the foundation phase, and others were saying it's with the system. Others were saying it's with the grade 4s. It's within the grade 4 class or phase or intermediate phase, whilst others were saying it is the problem of the teachers. So I'm more interested in knowing actually what is the problem and how can this problem be overcome. So that's another interest that I have that makes it more drive for me to conduct this study. So I know and understand that failure to read will drive learners to have a low self-esteem and not to be motivated to read. So I think trying to come up with different strategies to help learners read will try to help learners to work towards being confident readers and independent readers. Again, Fatuti says it is a duty of teachers to make it a point that they employ reading strategies in their classes as to help learners read with understanding. So in the methodology, this study will be looking at, first it will be guided by questions like, what reading practices do grade 1 learners from the selected school employ? And what grade 1 teachers' perceptions of employed reading strategies? Then I will use a qualitative research method, and a case study research design will be used purposefully to select the school, the school in the Western Cape, or it was used to select the school in the Western Cape. So I will be observing grade 1 learners and in 3 lessons, in 3 reading lessons. So in the school, there are 5 grade 1 classes. Then I'll select 3, I'm taking 3 classes, and then I will interview the teachers, and there will be coding and categorization of themes. Also, okay, then the findings will be, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118 The focus of the findings will be answering the 2 research questions that I've mentioned before that were posed in the study, and to try to cover reading practices employed in class, as well as learners, teachers' voices, because I wanted to hear the learners' voices. But now, since I was told not to interview the learners, I will be focusing more on the voices of teachers on their reading practices and how they perceive their reading practices. Then the discussions, the findings will be discussed in details. Then similar findings to the current study will also be shared for discussions, and conclusion will be made based on the findings discussed, and recommendations will be made as well. And I will acknowledge the school for participating and my department for affording me this opportunity to conduct the study. I think, Chair, let me for now stop there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Powell. Very interesting study there. Yeah, we look forward to hearing the many successes of your research. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, and students, we are now in the Q&A session. So if you have any question for Dr. Humphrey, Mr. Lucky, or Dr. Pahu, please, you are more than welcome to type in your question in the chat box, and I will direct the question to the appropriate speaker. I have a question quickly for Dr. Humphrey. So with respect to the completion rates, are you at any point in time looking at trying to see if you want to make a comparison between the students who are doing coursework and the students who are doing full thesis? You mentioned something very interesting with your study, which is quite revealing to a large extent, and in regards to the bursary. Are you looking at a way of coming up with recommendation with respect to how the financial support can help students with respect to their completion?
Yeah, thank you. So that is one of the reasons why let me just switch on my camera while I'm speaking. So that was one of the reasons why we didn't include the postgraduate program at this point, because was whether we needed to make that distinction between coursework and then full thesis. Coursework, typically it's enforced that it's a 2-year, where with a thesis it's not really, there's a minimum time that they must, and then but there's a different reasons there. So that, again, that was why we didn't include it in that specific reason. We actually still need to have the discussion with the faculty office as to do we group them together as we did with the undergrad, or do we make a separation between coursework versus full theses? My assumption at this point is we would have to make a clear distinction between the 2 types of programs. And then looking at the funding, yes, it does seem to be that it is a very important factor that a student has funding, whether that's NSFAS funding or whether that's a bursary or a scholarship. That does seem to be very important in increasing the probability of an on-time completion or acceptable completion. Now, how we use the results, that's the tricky part, because it's not, as I said, causality to say if a student comes and they don't have funding, sorry. That's not what we're saying. It's what are the intervention mechanisms that we put in place going forward to say we can clearly see the probability increases by 20% if a student has funding. So what is it, or on average 20%, sorry. So what is it that we can do from an institution perspective to assist that student? That's the difficulty now, and that is, as I said, it's the very first part of the study. Now we have to have the broader discussion with the faculty, with the registrar's office, with the DVC's offices, and say this is what we are seeing in the data in terms of the profiles. How do we take this analysis forward?
Well, that's a very interesting one, because the point Yeah, my director is just alluding to something, doing similar study to Dr. Brandon in the PG area was really be good. I think it will really be good. My director always teases me that we think alike most of the time. I think it will really be good because it speaks clearly into the institutional plan of the university and looking at UWC going towards the research-led trajectory. You know, completion rates is something that we cannot really compromise. Althea, I see Althea's hand is up. Althea, I'm not sure if you can unmute your mic. If you can speak, please go ahead. Yes. Althea, you can unmute your mic and go ahead with your question, please. Ms. Esther, I see your question. I will direct it to Dr. Paul shortly. Althea, are you there? Okay, I'm not sure. Maybe she's probably going to. Yeah, so yeah, Humphrey, it will really be good. And you mentioned something also very interesting and strategic with respect to your study, which is the part of collaboration with the faculties to know exactly what are the needs of the faculty, showing them the findings and all the rest of them. I think that's also going to be very interesting because it would now give an opportunity to develop a multifaceted intervention mechanism for postgrad students.
Just to add on that, I think what we also saw, as you saw with the two programs, these profiles can also inform the selection processes. So, for example, in these two programs, in two of the programs, we saw life sciences coming from high school with a life science with a 6 or 7, where previously it was assumed that coming with physical sciences was better. But we actually seen coming with life sciences, for example, is actually better for the student. So this can also inform the faculty when we're making those selections. What is it that we should be looking for as well?
And sometimes some of these intervention mechanisms are just something we didn't really pay attention to, but they are coming up with very positive results. So it's just another eye opener to say, what are you guys doing right? Let's replicate it in other areas. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Really beautiful. Ms. Esther, Dr. Paul, there's a question for you here. Ms. Esther is asking, she's wondering if you will cover the class size time frame allocated for teaching, reading, and amount of curriculum content to be covered in a year. So the question to you is, are you going to be covering the class size, the time frame for the teaching, reading, and the amount of curriculum content to be covered in a year? I'm not sure if you understand the question, but the question seems to be asking, are you going to look at the size of the class? Are you going to be looking at the time frame that is allocated to teaching the reading practices? And are you also going to be looking at the amount of curriculum content to be covered for the year? Dr. Paul, are you there? Did you hear the question from Ms. Esther? Dr. Paul, are you there? Okay, I'm not sure. I think maybe Dr. Paul, but Ms. Esther, I'll definitely make sure that your question is forwarded to Dr. Madikiza. Oh, okay. Hi, Dr. Madikiza. Can you hear us, please?
Yes, Chair, I can hear you, but I didn't get the message, the question that clearly. Is this like, I'm looking at the class size? What else?
Yes, so the question is that are you also going to consider the class size, the time that is allocated for teaching the reading practices, and also the curriculum content that is meant to be covered for the year? So it's more like 3 questions in one.
Okay, Chair. That's a good question. Because now I think it is also giving me, because I haven't looked at that, especially the class size. I think I can use that one as well, because this is still in the initiation stages. So I was just going to go there and just look at what they do during their reading time. I was going to look at the curriculum, but the class size, I didn't consider it. But I think this is I'm gonna look at it as well. Thank you so much for this, because I'm taking it as an advice, because I should be looking at other things as well. So thank you so much, Ms. Esther. I will be looking at that as well.
Thank you.
I'm noting that.
Yes. Then she also asked that if you will be looking at the teaching reading practices time allocation. So maybe that's also another factor that you may want to consider.
Yes.
Just to further the study. Yeah. Thank you very much. Truly appreciate that. Do we have any question? Any question for Mr. Lucky? Mr. Lucky, it looks like you are very lucky today. I'm not seeing any question that is being directed to you. So I think maybe I'll probably at some point in time also change my name to Lucky. But let me quickly ask you something, Mr. Lucky. So you are looking at student success within the institution. Are you looking at it within the context of both postgrad and undergrad? Are you looking at maybe first year, second year, or you just looking at it in its entirety? In what that trajectory or dimension are you looking at the student success?
Thank you for the question. So I'm looking at the undergraduate students, excluding the postgraduate. So because one of the measures for academic success is looking at the marks the students score, like the progression from one year to the next year. Again, looking at is alluded by the other previous researcher, looking at the throughput rates, that the aim is to ensure that if possible, students should finish within the minimum duration. If they don't, we're going to lose a lot of money, our parents, institutions, even the NSFAS, for example, government. So I'm trying to look at the economic aspect on how the institutions can maximize the resource allocation to specific student interventions or student support services, which would bring maximum output from the students.
Fantastic. Another quick follow-up question to that, Mr. Lucky, is that you indicated that based on the preliminary findings, you've only seen studies that are focused exclusively on qualitative research method. Are you going in the direction of quantitative, or you want to still continue in the qualitative landscape?
So, of course, my thesis will be focusing on quantitative.
Okay.
So like looking at what the Americans are doing, there are a number of studies which looks at student support holistically, like looking at the various support services. And there are very few studies which are doing the same in the South African context. And of course, as part of this literature review, none was included. And of course, the preliminary findings are that so those are the papers which I identified, and by just looking at them, none of them is utilizing, or in fact, I think one or two are focusing on the quantitative. So most of them are on the qualitative side. So it's just a reporting the finding.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Lucky, and all the best with your studies. So we have our next speaker that is going to take us through his research endeavors, Dr. Dube. Dr. Dube is going to share with us container-based sanitation user experience through an intersectional lens. And his study aligns with Sustainable Development Goal 6. Dr. Dube, are you with us? Please, you may proceed with your presentation. Thank you very much for availing yourself.
Yes, thank you so much, Professor Olu. Is it Dr. Olu? I don't know. So now I like to start sharing my screen. I've already been introduced, so I'll just dive straight into my presentation. I hope everyone can see my presentation now.
Yes, we can. You can just put it on the slide mode.
Right, sure. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Okay, thank you so much for accepting our paper. So this paper is a paper that's being written by myself and two other colleagues from the Political Studies Department. And we're also from a research group called the Politics and Urban Governance Research Group. So Fiona Anciano and Dr. Mabaso, allowed me to present this paper with you. So firstly, maybe, as I said, or as the topic suggests, we're looking at sanitation. So why is sanitation quite a huge issue in the world at the moment? SDG 6 seeks to achieve access to adequate and equitable sanitation for all. But still, about 29% of the world does not have sanitation. We're off track as the world in terms of fulfilling that. And 60% of urban dwellers in sub-Saharan Africa are poor and they live in unserviced informal settlements. They do not have sewer toilets. And in Cape Town, there's about 20% of the city's households that are in informal settlements. So sewers are generally not enough, or toilets are not enough. So what? Basically, the reason why they're not enough, some people suggest that it's capital investment that's not available, institutional capability. You know, there are also issues around land tenure, topographical factors in cities like Cape Town, where you can't install sewers in some places. So what we do, there's a need, therefore, to increase alternatives, particularly off-grid technologies, such as CBS. By CBS, I mean container-based sanitation. So what is container-based sanitation? Some of you may not know, who are not in this field. So it's a non-sewer sanitation strategy through which human excreta is captured in sealable containers and transported to semi-centralized facilities for treatment, requiring limited home infrastructure and stuff. So you basically have people defecating in containers, closing them, sealing them, and the human waste is carried and disposed or treated elsewhere. So I'll say a lot of things as they are. Some may sound disgusting and the pictures will be quite disgusting, but I've been assured that this is an academic space in God's literature. So so sanitation in Cape Town informal settlements, what exactly is happening? That 20% of the households, there are about 36% of households that have got access to shared full flush toilets. 5 households share 1 toilet. And then there are about 88% of informal settlement who use shared container-based sanitation, the one that I was talking about earlier on. Again, the same ratio of 1 toilet to 5 households. And then there are about 11% that have something called portable flush toilets. This will be your private container-based sanitation that you have in your own house. I'm trying to go to next. It's not working. Just some light technical glitches. I can't move to the next slide when I want. Just 1 second. Okay. Program director, I'm facing some slight challenges. There's a
is your PowerPoint stuck or what's happening?
Yes, my PowerPoint is a bit stuck. Okay. All right. So there are claims around. I can't move. Okay. I'm not sure what I must do here. Can you still see my screen?
Yes, we can still see your screen. It's on the slide of claims on CBS.
Okay. But I can't move from that slide. I wanted to just emphasize something on the previous slide, but it's fine. I think, as I said...
Sorry, Dr. Dube, your camera is off.
My camera is off now. Okay. Yes, I put it off on purpose because I thought maybe it was my network. Okay.
Oh, there we go. It's moving now.
Yeah, all right. So there are claims around container-based sanitation by scholars and practitioners. Most importantly, I think they claim that container-based sanitation is inclusive. I say that there's a huge problem with toilets, accessing toilets in the world. So what do we do in the meantime? Others are proposing that let's roll out something called container-based sanitation if we don't have sewers. So some claim that these container-based sanitations methodologies or technologies are inclusive, which means they reach users where sewers can't. They are hygienically safe. They never fill up or leave sludge untreated. They are substantially lower in terms of finance, so they are affordable. Then they are accessible to people with physical disabilities. And then they also protect women and girls. You know, they provide them with a private space and a safe space for them to use the toilet. But there's a slight problem there that we're seeing as scholars come from the politics and also interested in urban politics. So the effectiveness of CBS is often measured in technical and quantitative terms, where they are basically counting how many people are reaching this, how many people have a toilet, even if it's a container-based toilet. But the qualitative experience is not measured. So we think that is also important in terms of, safely managed sanitation, because it's not only sanitation, but it's safely managed sanitation, meaning that it has to be dignified and waste has to be treated. It does not have to affect people in a negative way. So there's a gap in understanding those experiences. So our paper uses an intersectional lens to try and examine vulnerable residents in BM section, which is our case study. Those who are using the PFT that I talked about, and then those who are using shared forms of sanitation of toilets across the settlement. So what method are we using? We're using a method called, this is ongoing research, as I said, but we've already collected data, so we're now analyzing. So we used something called photo voice. Photo voice is a method where participants themselves are involved in collecting data using taking of pictures, and then you interview them using those pictures. So we have about 13 participants. We looked at gender, disability, income, whole household size, just to get different people across those 13. We trained them, we gave them 1 week to go and take pictures. They took pictures, then we interviewed them based on 5 pictures each that they selected. And then we're analyzing this at household level. This is BM section, has about 13,000 people, the informal settlement in Khayelitsha in Cape Town. These are some of the types of toilets that exist that I just spoke about. The first one is called a portable flush toilet on the left, followed by a community accusation block where there are lots of toilets there, about 10 of them, and then showers for people to bath and spaces for them to wash their clothes outside. Then these are individual toilets with green doors. They are full flush toilets as well. Then these on the left, blue ones, are called container-based toilets, which are emptied using a honeysucker, a truck that comes and then draws up all human feces and urine. So what are our findings? Our findings, as I said, that we're using an intersectional lens and we're looking at each person's story counts. So we will be using something called vignettes, basically short stories of each person. So I quote from some of the stories to try and share. Dr. Olu, kindly let me know how I'm doing on time.
Yes, okay. You've got about 7 minutes more.
Okay, thanks. So I draw from those vignettes to just try to say what are some of our findings. So some of our findings are around, portable flush toilets. These private container-based sanitations actually have increased or improved access to sanitation to people living with disability, or to elderly women, or to people with large households and low levels of income. So for instance, there's Sipiwe. These are not real names. We've given these people pseudonyms. So she's 60 years old, female with eyesight problems. She arrived long back in BM section when there were no toilets. But when the toilets were built, the ablution block in particular was, which is closest to her home, was too far still, and she needed someone to accompany, especially at night. She did not feel safe using it. And she actually said it's dark in there. Even when I go in there, it's dirty. I might touch feces. I'll come out dirty instead of coming out clean. So here is a picture that she took of how she actually sees the place. So we try to see sanitation from the perspective of the user. They are using the camera to actually give us a view of how they see sanitation and how they experience it. So it's a passage that she's actually taken a picture of in the public ablution block, the shared sanitation. And then she received a PFT at some point, and she says, it changed my life. Now she's safe. I'm safe here because I'm in my yard. She had to build a structure, as you can see in the picture. This is not her home, but this is a typical way in which people build an external structure adjacent to their shacks to then accommodate that PFT. As I showed you in the picture, it's just like it's a small form of technology that doesn't have a cubicle. So people have to provide that cubicle for themselves. And then the other participant, Iliwe, a young man, forgets things easily. That's what he says. So we tend not to diagnose people because we don't know what their sicknesses are. So we take their words to say what they say their disability is. Someone might say he has got mental disorders. He does not see clearly, he's partially blind. But he says, it helps us a lot in my home, this portable flush toilet. And he has shared a picture with us there of where they keep the toilet. So one of the themes that is emerging is that keeping this form of toilet, this toilet here is hard. It's a small gadget, there's no cubicle. You're already disabled or you already don't have money. You have to improvise to keep it. So they keep it together with his father's tools in a storeroom. But it's a storeroom for his father's tools. So accessing a toilet sometimes can be difficult. And also it has no lock. And he says sometimes they wake up to people having messed the toilet over the night and cleaned it, pacifiers, that is. And then, so now I want to move to my next slide. Okay, so then we have another Hlala, who is another man, who is a disabled man, who has a paralyzed side of his body. He uses a chemical toilet in the portable toilet. He says that he has challenges. The way toilets are designed, sometimes it's difficult for him to use the toilet, particularly those that are stable or those that are placed on unlevel ground. So because these portable flush toilets, people are given them without cubicles and any concrete surface or whatsoever, they then place them in improvised fashion, like this one that we see here in the picture. And he says that it's unstable, it's too low, he can't access it. So while the PFTs are working, they still have these kind of problems. And then there are also vulnerability also comes in form of disasters, flooding, fires. So this is one of our participants that experienced a fire in November 2022. Her house got burnt, lost everything, but managed to retain a PFT. And then the structure that she was keeping it in got burnt. Then now he has no structure and asked the neighbor to place it in their yard, but she can't use it because it's just in the open. And then these are some of the daily experiences of people who do not use PFTs, who do not have container-based sanitation in their houses who use shared sanitation. So toilets are blocked, children have to fetch water on their own, but young ones have to ask someone to accompany them. Then others experience distance. The toilet is far, about 100 meters away, difficult to go there at night because of safety concerns, and also generally lack of comfort because there are people passing just by the toilet, and sometimes the toilet is not totally closing the door and you feel like you are being washed while you're in the toilet. And then open defecation for those who do not have toilets is still a large problem, where people use what is called flying toilets. They defecate in papers, and then tie them, and then throw them out. So this is a picture also that was shared by one of the people in terms of what they experience when they don't have container-based sanitation. Then there's also locking of toilets. This municipality gives people, like I said, the ratio is 5 households per toilet. They are supposed to lock a toilet, share 5 keys to unlock the keypad, the padlock. But some people choose to privatize. They change the padlock and then they share it with friends. And then some people don't have access to those toilets. So this lady here was telling us about, she also works as an EPW worker. So she cleans toilets, and then she sees people every day just spilling their waste. They use buckets in their houses, and then they spill the waste just around the toilet area. Then there's also an aspect of poor servicing, for particularly the shared sanitation, where maggots and other problems, filling up with toilets, and then people having no alternatives and having to resort to open defecation. So what do we conclude, or what do we think? We think portable flush toilets do improve sanitation, access to sanitation, particularly because they are given for free. They improve privacy, sense of comfort and safety, and some level of dignity. However, the container-based sanitation's efficacy is limited because assumptions by the city, for instance, the assumption that people will keep the toilets in their houses. They don't keep them in their houses. Particularly the assumption that people will flush using water in these portable flush toilets. Some people do not flush. They just shove the human waste using broomsticks or something, because they think if they flush with water, it will fill up easy. And then, so these toilets also do not cater for some forms of disability, like the guy that I was talking about, who is paralyzed, partially paralyzed, and he says, he can't sit on some of these toilets, they are too low, or they are too unstable. Then, so vulnerable households without private CBS are worse off. They have poor access to sanitation. They still walk the distance. Like I showed you some of the pictures of toilets that are still far, and safety is a concern, especially at night. And some are not dignified, because if you walk into a toilet and it's blocked and it has got feces all over, you can't even sit, you can't touch anything. So our paper highlights the complexities that sanitation providers should embrace to effectively provide safely managed sanitation for vulnerable populations without sewers. So I think I'll leave it there and wait for your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Dr. Dube. Quite a very interesting study there, and it's very relatable, quite practical with what the society is experiencing. And yeah, I think I'm just looking into the chat box, hoping that there will be some questions for you. But I see there's a question for Dr. Pawu again. Someone is asking if she's going to consider reading only and not assessing writing, listening, speaking, acquisition, or transfer of reading skills in English language reading. Okay, so I'm not sure. I think Dr. Pawu is no longer online, but I'm pretty sure she will get this question just for her to probably consider in executing her research that she's embarked on. Thank you so much again, Dr. Dube. Really appreciate your your input and the profound insights that your study has provided. So we want to move to the last speaker for this session, which also brings to a close today's being the first day of UWC 2023 Research Week. And we have Dr. Tamri Frank. Dr. Tamri Frank unfortunately could not be here in presence, in physical, but she has sent in her presentation in form of recording. So I will call on my host. Is Maxine there? Yes, Maxine, please, you can go ahead and present Dr. Tamri's slides. Maxine, we can't have the audio. I'm not sure what is happening. Maybe you just want to check the audio. I see it's already playing.
Good. Apologies that I can't be there in person with you today. I am a work woman, but my colleagues to assist some questions. Please also should you have any queries. This study history expenditure of sub-Saharan Africa. And the reason that we chose to look at this is because
I'm sorry, Maxine. There's an echo with the presentation. So maybe you want to just quickly check that. There's a slight echo with the presentation.
Anissa,
Maxine, are you winning?
apologies that I can't be there in person with you today. I am in New York traveling for work at the moment, but my colleague and collaborator on this paper, Lisa Dice, is in the room, and hopefully she should be able to assist with some questions. But please also feel free to send me an email afterwards should you have any follow-up queries. This study looks at food industry expenditure on television marketing in sub-Saharan Africa. And the reason that we've chosen to look at this topic is because we know that there has been an increase in the amount of unhealthy ultra-processed foods that is being consumed in sub-Saharan Africa, and that these foods are linked to increased rates of obesity and non-communicable diseases like diabetes, heart disease, and certain cancers. These foods are especially high in unhealthy components such as saturated fat, sugar, and salt. And we should be limiting the intake. However, we see we are consuming more and more of these types of foods. And the reality is that, unfortunately, they are produced by for-profit food and beverage companies whose main purpose is to make a profit. And so understandably, I guess from their side, they make use of extensive marketing techniques in order to try and promote and encourage the sales and consumption of their foods, because that's how they make money. And TV marketing is one of the most influential forms of marketing that they can use, and that does encourage the consumption of these unhealthy products. And we see that within the countries that we have included in the study, there has been a massive increase in obesity, and there's an expected increase between 2020 to 2035, based on the World Obesity Federation estimates, that amongst adults, a year-on-year increase in obesity will be at around 3 to 4%, and for children, it's even higher than that. It's between 7 to 9%, depending on the country. And this is really, really alarming if we think about how this obesity is linked to non-communicable diseases and poor health outcomes. So this study aimed to explore the extent of television, food and beverage marketing in sub-Saharan Africa, so that we could have a better picture of how much marketing is happening and what is the spend on marketing, to understand what the food and beverage industry is doing in these countries a little bit better. So this study makes use of a secondary data set that we've obtained from an advertisement broadcasting monitoring company. And this company monitors all television shows and adverts that are aired, both on free and paid for television channels in various countries in Africa. We've included currently 9 sub-Saharan African countries, being Angola, Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, Namibia, Nigeria, Tanzania, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. We will also be adding South Africa to this. The South African data set is extremely big and it's taking quite a long time to analyze, but that will be added to our final study. And we've included 4 years of data. So we have data from 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. And our analysis for this study has been done in statement version 17. Please note that the results that I'm sharing with you are preliminary. This is very much a work in progress at the moment, and our results are not yet final. And so, of course, we will welcome any feedback that you may have as we are busy progressing with this analysis. So if we look at what share of TV advertisements were covered by the study, the TV broadcasting company whose data we've used monitors all the free stations in the countries that we are assessing, as well as paid for multi-choice television stations. And when we look at the largest paid for television broadcasters in Africa, they are multi-choice and Canal Plus. And within the countries that we have chosen to evaluate, multi-choice is the leading broadcaster in most of them. So we have managed to cover a large share of television marketing that people are exposed to in their countries, but there is a portion that those who are watching Canal Plus television shows has missed in this study. When we look at the television marketing spend across all the countries, we've divided it up into the total spend, that being spent on non-alcoholic beverages, which is your blue bar, that being spent on food items for marketing, which is the red bar, and that being spent on alcoholic beverages, which is the light gray bar. And we can see that Kenya is the country that the most money is being spent on television marketing amongst these 9 countries, followed then by Ghana and Zambia, and Namibia and Zimbabwe have the smallest marketing spend. Across the 4-year period, In all 9 countries, the total spend for TV marketing was over $350 million that the food and beverage industry is paying. And this is just for their costs to air their adverts on television. This does not take into account what is being spent developing the adverts, which we know is also quite an expensive process. And this is really quite a lot of money if you think about the socioeconomic situation in all of these countries and the money that could be spent rather on protecting health. So yeah, I think 350 million being spent on advertising is quite a large amount of money, and that's US dollars. When we look at which companies were the largest advertisers overall based across all the countries, amongst the non-alcoholic beverages, we see Trade Kings Group being the largest advertiser, followed by Coca-Cola and then Nestle. For food items, Trade Kings Group was also the largest advertiser, and then that was followed by Unilever and Dufil. And for alcoholic beverages, we see Diageo being the biggest advertiser, followed by Adonco Bitters and AB InBev. We then also looked at each country individually, and this again is the spend across the 4-year period. So it covers all 4 years, and we looked at which brands within the advertisers were most commonly advertised. So for all of these graphs that I'm going to show you, the brand on the left-hand side is the brand that was most frequently advertised. However, the spend was not always the highest by the brand who was advertising most frequently, and that is because the spend differed, depending different television stations, different times of days. The advert has a different price that the food industry is paying to advertise in at different times of days and on different stations. So not necessarily the most number of adverts means that they are spending the most, but the brand on the left-hand side, in this case for Angola Tiagra, is the brand that is being advertised most frequently, whereas here we see Amstel is the brand that has the biggest spend for marketing on advertising, for television advertising in Angola. And when we look at which TV programs were most frequently used for this food and beverage marketing, we see that these adverts most often occurred in Angola in the TV program TPA1. For Ethiopia, Pepsi was the brand most frequently advertised, and it was also the biggest spend, and EBS was the television program that was where food and beverages were most frequently advertised in Ghana, Milo was the most frequently advertised, as well as the biggest spend on advertising, and Adom TV was the program where advertising of food and beverages happened most frequently. In Kenya, Coca-Cola was most frequently advertised, and also the biggest spend went to Coca-Cola. And in Kenya, Adom TV was also the program where advertising occurred most frequently. In Namibia, we see Coca-Cola being the brand most frequently advertised, and also the biggest spend on advertising going to Coca-Cola. And we see that Namibian Broadcasting Corporation is the TV program where food and beverages are most frequently advertised. And in Nigeria, we see Milo being the product that is most commonly advertised, as well as the product that has the most marketing spend on it. And Wazobia mix being the TV program where food and beverages are most commonly advertised. In Tanzania, it was alcoholic beverage, Serengeti beer, that was most commonly advertised, and also having the largest spend on marketing, and Tanzania TV being the TV program that was most commonly used to advertise food and beverages. In Zambia, we see Dairy Gold being the brand that was most frequently advertised, but we see Vatra being the product or brand that was spending the most in terms of US dollars on their marketing. And we see This study does, of course, have some limitations. We only used the free television stations and multi-choice. We did not include any Canal Plus TV stations. We've made use of secondary data for our analysis, and so we have had to make use of the information that's available and the limitations in what data is not available in the data set. And we also have only assessed what types of adverts there were, but we haven't looked at the content of each advert individually. We are doing a separate project in South Africa, looking specifically at the content of the advert. And if there are any collaborators from any of the countries that we have mentioned that are possibly interested in doing a more in-depth study within their country, please do reach out to us. We would be very interested, but we do think it's important that should we do any in-depth analysis in any of these countries, we do need to have in-country collaborators for that. So in conclusion, I think we can see that there is a large amount of TV marketing of unhealthy foods, of both alcoholic and non-alcoholic sugary beverages in sub-Saharan Africa, and that the food and beverage industry is spending a large amount of money on marketing and advertising their products on television in order to promote sales of it. And as a result of this, and given the context that we know obesity rates are increasing in these countries, policies are urgently needed to protect the population against the pervasive marketing techniques that are used by the for-profit food and beverage industry, and to promote and protect population health. This study, of course, would not be possible without the help of my co-authors and collaborators on this project, who are Lisa Dice, Alice Khan, and Rina Swart, all at UWC. And we have received some funding for this project from Bloomberg Philanthropies. Thank you so much for your time. And as I say, I'm sorry I'm not there to be with you in person, but please do feel free to reach out with the email or to interact with Lisa, who is in the audience today. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Maxine, for coming through for Dr. Tamri. I'm sure she will really appreciate this. Colleagues, if there are any questions with respect to Dr. Tamri's presentation, she's got, if I'm not mistaken, I think Lisa. Lisa is standing in for her to respond to any question relating to her presentation. It's quite an interesting study. And I think one of my questions has actually been answered when I saw the slide on the limitations of the study, because it will be quite interesting to understand what makes a consumer to go for this product. It could probably be within the context of the content of the advertisement and what's the kind of message or perception that this content is creating among the potential consumers. So yeah, it's quite an interesting study. Do we have any question for Dr. Tamri? Do we have any question? Okay, it doesn't look like we have any question. I'm checking the chat box also, the Q&A chat box, to see if we have any question for Dr. Tamri. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, postgraduate students, we have come to the end of the first day of UWC 2023 Research Week. It's been quite revealing. It's been quite interesting, and I'm very sure and convinced that as many of you that have listened in to all the presentations, you've probably identified possibly maybe potential researcher that you may want to have a conversation with, or you may want to interact with or collaborate with, or perhaps even maybe pursue your master's or your doctoral degrees in the area that they are currently working on. And if you look carefully, you will notice that the researches, the studies being discussed and presented today, they cut across a variety of spectrum of field, in multidisciplinary, and that's the beauty of what we are celebrating in the 2023 UWC Research Week. I want to sincerely thank each and every one of you that has made it to be part of this first day. Tomorrow is going to be another very interesting day, another very beautiful day with a lot of knowledge sharing, insight being provided, your interest being triggered with respect to research. And I want to sincerely thank all of the panelists, all of the speakers, for taking our time to share your work with us, for taking our time to showcase your work to the broader UWC community, for blazing the trail and making sure that research is still highly functional in UWC. I want to sincerely thank all the media team as well, Melanin, Maxine. I want to thank Xenia for coordinating and conducting the practice sessions with all the participants. And I also want to thank the Director of Research, Development and Postgraduate Support Unit, Professor Julie Phillips, for also standing in all the time throughout today's presentation. From me, Olushola Adeni, I want to say thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow again for another beautiful session. Until then, please stay safe. God bless you all. See you tomorrow.